So Tom, we're a week past last time. Actually, a little less than a week. We put the podcast out a day late last week.
Yeah.
I think both of us are through the woods a little bit, feeling a lot better, back to ourselves. And we left out one piece of the conversation last week. You know, for all of the conversation about property and everything else.
Yeah.
And the fact that we were sick, neither of us had COVID, but the fact that we were sick, we didn't talk about COVID at all.
Right.
And when we talk about property, that's been a big part of the conversation, right? I mean, what rights do we have with our own bodies? Yep. As far as COVID, and what right do businesses have? You even posted something on Facebook about what rights do government agencies that are blatantly unconstitutional to begin with,
right?
But what employment rights do they have, and what rights do you have in terms of that?
And that's a whole that gets so murky so fast, because you have government agencies that are intrinsically unconstitutional. There's no constitutional authority for the agency to exist. And then what's happening is employees within those agencies are looking to unconstitutional measures, things like the Americans with Disabilities Act, to provide some cover, some protection, so that they don't have to comply with requirements and regulations that the government's handing down for government employees.
But only the ones they want to, right? I mean, you still have a lot of these bureaus and a lot of these agencies saying you must be vaccinated, you must wear a mask when you're at work. When for the last several months anyway, mask mandates were gone. A lot of governors, even in the most Democrat-led states like Colorado, had given up their executive powers that they had claimed over the idea of the pandemic.
And now it's coming back, right? It's coming roaring back. Very likely we're going to see something similar to what we saw last year. I don't know if it'll be as intense or extreme or as comprehensive or not, but we're certainly heading in that direction. And, you know, this raises a question that a number of our members have asked us about. How do we think about these things, especially in terms of private businesses? And Dave, I said to you before, and it's worth repeating, I've almost come to dislike the concept business. Now, I love what businesses do. I'm an entrepreneur. I love business. But that word is now used to designate certain kinds of private property. And certain property owners, and puts very unique kinds of burdens and responsibilities on them. We have talked some about public accommodation laws, and the big granddaddy of them all is Title II of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And what that does is it says if you have property in the form of a business, certain kinds of businesses, we in the government are going to designate your business a public accommodation. And then there's all these restrictions and regulations and requirements that go with it. Even you might be sitting there thinking, wait, my business is not a public. I don't want to accommodate the public. I want to accommodate the people I invite into my business, and that's it. Doesn't matter. The government says, no, you are a public accommodation, and we're going to tell you how you're going to run your business. Same thing with Title VII of the 64 Civil Rights Act. It says if your property is designated legally as a business, we're going to tell you who you may hire, who you may not hire, under what conditions you can fire somebody. All these restrictions and regulations.
And let's not forget wage control, right?
All
these minimum wage laws and and all of these things and the conversations now about taxing levels and all of that all falls under the same category, whether it's the same law, whether it was the same creation in the Civil Rights Act or not.
It applies to quote unquote businesses, right?
If you and I were just a couple of friends who were getting together in the Vino Veritas Society with just something, hey, let's go have fun and build this thing. And we didn't declare it a business, the IRS is going to come in and say, no, you guys are a business. You guys need to abide by these laws.
In fact, here I'm going to try to I'm going to get kind of wonky and weirdly philosophic, but I want to do this little exercise to highlight, to illustrate the problem of this concept of business. Now, imagine you and I are neighbors, and I'm going to challenge the listeners. I'm going to pose a series of interactions between us. And I want the listener to decide at what point does our interaction in any way constitute a business on either side. Suppose we both walk out the front door at the same time, and I look over at you and I say, hi, Dave, and you say, hi, Tom. Is that a business transaction? Probably most people would say, no, it's not. How about if I said, hey, Dave, you want to come over and hang out and talk for a little bit? And you said, sure, I would. Is that a business transaction? Suppose I said, Dave, would you come over and talk to me? You said, man, I'm really busy. I said, I'll make a cup of your favorite tea or your favorite coffee, or I'll serve your favorite pastry if you'll just come over and talk to me. And you think you had, boy, I really like Tom's pastries. I'll go eat one of his pastries and have a conversation with him.
Starting to sound like a business.
Right? And what if I say, hey, Dave, come on over and you don't have time, and I say, I grew some great tomatoes. I'll give you a basket of my fresh tomatoes if you'll come over and talk to me for a little bit.
Now we're really getting there.
And you see how we can have all kinds of exchanges in an infinite number of ways. Some may involve cash, many won't involve cash. And to say exactly at what point do I become a business, or what point do you become a business,
right,
or at what point do either of us become a customer is really hard to say. So for this discussion, I'm going to ask our listeners, try to set aside that concept of business just for a moment and think about property, private property, because there's the real foundational concept.
I don't want to lose that idea, and I want to stick with that. But I want to show our members just how complicated that actually gets. Right? Because you just talked about two neighbors and you don't know what their relationship is.
Right.
What if there was a relationship there? Right? All right. So a little something about me. My grandmother made the greatest banana bread you've ever had in your entire life. And I will put that up against any one of our listeners.
Okay.
My mom is the only one who still knows how to make it.
Okay.
Okay. And I will challenge any one of our listeners who tells me otherwise. There is nothing better. And I have plenty of friends who have had it who will confirm.
I'm thinking of some members up in Fort Collins who might want to challenge us on that.
I know, and I have no concern about it. So what if my mom says to me, hey, I made you a banana bread.
Right.
I need you to come over and help me with my computer.
Right.
And you can pick up the banana bread while you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a business transaction between a mother and a son?
Should the government come in and say, hold on, Mom, you need to supply Dave with at least $7.25 worth of banana bread if he's going to come over and work on your computer for an hour?
Or in most cases now, state governments have made that $15 an hour.
Right.
So,
Mom, you better fork over $15 worth of banana bread.
Right. So there's that where it becomes even more murky when it's between like mother and son or father and son or father and daughter or brothers and sisters and family, right? But a business could say, I only want to serve my family. Mm-hmm. I only want my only customers. I'm opening this business, which we're saying we don't love that word, but I'm opening this business because I want to provide a service to my family and only my family.
Yep.
And I actually know people who do that. They're lawyers who. They're a lawyer and they're contracted, and their only client is a parent, or their only client is a relative. So there's that. Then you get into what are services worth, and what are service values worth, right? Mm-hmm. So what if I just come over and talk to you, but I bill $100 an hour for my services,
right?
But I don't want to charge you, or I don't want to charge my neighbor, I don't want to charge my grandmother, my mother, my father, whatever it is. At what point does the government say they can get involved? And where the government has made this even more difficult is they've started creating caps on how much you can give to a friend in gifts. Right? We're allowed, I think the number just went up to either $17,000 or $18,000 a year.
Yeah.
So I am allowed to give gifts to somebody up to $17,000 or $18,000 a year before that person has to start paying taxes on it.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, I go from, I gave you a gift of $18,000, and then I give you $18,001. Now you're a business.
Right.
Now you have to start giving gifts.
And think of how arbitrary that is, right?
It's just a random number.
We've done this several times. So at our house, I built an outdoor, big flat white screen.
Right.
And I have this projector and I set up some speakers. And it's kind of fun. My wife and I like to watch movies in the summer when it's nice sitting out in the backyard. And there have been a few times where we've invited some people over. One time we said, come on over and watch a movie and bring some food and drinks with you. We'll just have a big potluck. And that's a trade, right? We're trading this movie experience in the backyard for a bottle of wine or a bowl of a potato salad.
Yep.
Other times we supplied everything. And we said, just come on over. If you want to pitch in a little something, we're going to prepare all the food and we'll have drinks and stuff. Feel free to pitch. And so people would drop, $5, $10. They were paying us for food, for a movie experience.
You were
right?
operating a movie theater without a license.
That's right. I'm very risky that way. And so the point is, what we call a business is really just people interacting with each other, reaching agreements to trade things, to do things together. And that's why I don't like that designation business, because so many people assume the business as an organization and the business owner has some kind of special obligation and restrictions and that nobody and that's not the way to think about it. The way to think about it is private property. We're all property owners. Mm-hmm. Every human being is a property owner because every human being owns himself, owns his own person, his own freedom, his mind, his labor, whatever he makes. And sometimes free human beings who are property owners decide to interact with each other. And what we call a job at a business, and this is one of the things, this is going to become it already is becoming controversial. Some employers are saying, if you want a job here at this place, you have to get vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And some people are really pushing back hard. You can't do that. You can't make that a condition of employment. But if you set aside that kind of artificial designation of business and you just think about it in terms of property owners, we're all property owners. So somebody who invests his own capital and buys a building and buys, materials and things and sets it up to run a restaurant or a clothing store or whatever it is, a gas station. It doesn't matter what the thing is. That's his property. And if he wants some help running it, he's free to make any kind of offer he wants to anybody he wants.
Sure.
And his offer might be a really kind of, not very desirable offer. He might say, hey, Dave, come work your tail off for 80 or 90 hours a week and I'll buy you a soda, right? And you might say, yeah, that's not worth working my tail off just to have someone buy a soda for me.
I have had that offer before, by the way.
But he's got to think, if he really does want help, he's got to think of what can he offer in exchange for the kind of help that'll make his business go. And he can make that offer to anybody he wants to offer. And he can also not offer it. Maybe there's someone he doesn't like. Well, he doesn't have to go offer, a job, offer compensation to someone he doesn't like. And then anyone who gets an offer, they're of course free to accept or decline. Mm-hmm. And that property owner might say, here's what I need. I need help. A couple days a week, I need you to get in a cage and go underwater with scuba gear and do some welding, and there's going to be sharks all around.
Yep.
And then the other days of the week, I need you to crawl up on top of this skyscraper that we're building, and we'll have some safety equipment, but still, you're going to be up at 1,000 feet, and you might fall to your death. In other words, there are risks that could come with a job offer.
And those are the extreme cases, right? Those are the ones that those are few and far between. But how many people go in and clean houses that have been ravaged by bad renters or something like that, or go in and fix old homes that are covered in asbestos and probably have rodents in the walls and all of those things? I mean, that's almost an everyday thing where you're inhaling things, you're risking things going into your body. I don't care if you have a mask or not. I don't care if you're wearing gloves or not. You're still dealing with things.
In other words, there's a spectrum of risks.
Right.
Some kinds of work, some kinds of help. Again, I like to think of a job. I don't even like the term job. I like to just think of it's an agreement. It's an agreement between what we call a job should be a mutual voluntary agreement between two people. Usually it takes the form of one person agrees to do a certain amount of work, a certain kind of work, and the other party agrees to compensate. It could be money, but it doesn't have to be money. They could offer some other kind of compensation as long as the two parties agree.
It sounds an awful like a customer relationship, doesn't it? I mean, people don't think about it that way, but how is an employee any different than a customer.
Yes.
It's really the business owner says, I have a service, I have a product to offer you. And if you do that for whatever that is, and you go back and forth, the employee, no difference than a customer. Customer comes in and says, I have money to give you, and I want whatever you have. An employee comes in and says, I want your money. I have a service I can provide you. And we talked about this.
Think about that. The customer, in a way, what we call the customer is a buyer. The customer is a buyer. The customer walks in to the store and says, I have cash. Look at this cash. I counts it out. Here's how much cash I have. I want you to try to buy this. What can you offer to buy this cash from me? And the store owner might say, well, I have this brand new bicycle, or I have this riding lawnmower, or I have this new car. I'll buy that cash from you, right, with this piece of merchandise or service or whatever it is. So really, every seller is a buyer. Every buyer is a seller, because it's a trade. It's an exchange. And you're absolutely right. What we call an employer is looking for a trade. They need some help. Maybe the help involves some risk. Maybe the help involves a lot of risk. It might. And so they're offering something they think might be of value to other people, and other people are free to sit and look at that and choose. Do I want to take that risk and get that amount of compensation or not? Now, if an employee, if a business owner, a property owner, is free to say, I want some help, and it's going to involve the risk of swimming with sharks or climbing skyscrapers or cleaning up hazardous materials. What if the property owner says, I need help and I need you to get the vaccine, the COVID vaccine? The answer for the other party is not to sue, is not to try to hurt the person. It's to make a choice. Well, there's the offer. That person will pay you X amount of money and maybe throw in some health insurance or whatever it is. And there are conditions. You got to wear this uniform. You got to show up at this time. You got to know how to run this kind of machinery, and you need to be vaccinated. And if you say, well, I don't want to do that, I don't want to get the vaccine, well, then that's probably not the job for you.
I think about another example that would be sort of the equivalent. What's the illness that, I don't want to call it a disease, it's not a disease, but where people can't do gluten? Not the people who are just gluten-free by choice, but there's actually a condition that some people just, their body can't handle gluten, right? Celiac disease. If you have celiac disease, you're probably not going to go work for a brewery. You're definitely not going to go work for a brewery that says you're a taste tester. Your job at the brewery is to be a taste tester and to tell us the quality of the beer, right? Because it's going to kill you. It's going to make you sick, and you choose not. I can't go take that job. There's really no difference here.
And yet this is, I mean, people are really upset about this, because there's a view, and this is something that's kind of cuts across partisan lines, political lines. I think there are many liberals and conservatives who hold this view that a business owner, again, speaking to why I don't like this term, a business owner can only fire someone in very certain conditions or for very specified reasons. But if we think about people not as business owners, but rather as property owners, he can fire someone at any time for any reason and for no reason at all. In the same way, we have listeners right now gasping, going, did Krannawitter actually just say that? But think about this. Isn't a person free to quit a job anytime for any reason, for no reason at all?
Assuming there's no contract.
Assuming there's no contract. And that adds if someone has written out a contractual obligation, now that changes things. There's an agreement in the form of a contract. But if it's a typical job, just paycheck to paycheck, a person, an employee can quit. Here's a question, Dave. Could an employee at a regular job, no contract, just paycheck to paycheck, could an employee quit because the business owner is gay?
They could.
Could an employee quit because the business owner's straight?
They could.
Right? Could an employee quit because the business owner is an atheist?
They could.
Or a Christian.
They could.
Or a Jew.
Yes.
Right? You see the point here. An employee can quit for any reason and no reason, and in the same way, a business owner, the property owner, can fire somebody for any reason, for no reason. The job should be an agreement, and the employment should last as long as that agreement is in place between the two parties.
And this goes right back to my earlier comment about there's no difference between an employee and a customer.
That's right.
And a business owner and a customer.
That's right.
Right? A business owner can fire a customer at any time. I know plenty of lawyers who have said, yeah, I'm not going to work with you as a client anymore. You are not worth my time as an attorney. Or, I mean, put it in this context. You're a criminal defense attorney, and somebody walks into your office and says, okay, we've made our agreement. I've paid you. You're now my attorney. We have attorney-client privilege. You can't say anything.
Right.
I murdered 75 people. I want you to go defend me, and I want you to prove that I didn't do it.
Right.
No insanity plea, nothing else. I want you to prove that I didn't do it. The lawyer has every right to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Go find another attorney. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not going to go turn you into the police because we have an agreement. I can't do that.
Right.
But I don't want to represent you. Right? What's the difference there? If you murdered 75 people intentionally, I don't want to represent you. You're going to murder me probably.
And imagine if I didn't murder 75 people, but I'm just a crabby, grouchy person. Right?
Yeah. My dad was a lawyer for a long time. He had a lot of those clients.
The lawyer could also say, I don't want to work with you, even though you didn't murder anybody. You're just crabby and grouchy, and I think life is too precious. I don't want to spend my time around crabby, grouchy clients. Go find another lawyer. What we call a job, what we call a purchase. So this speaks to the employee. A customer typically purchases something, what we call a purchase. An employee has a job, what we call a job, a purchase, really boils down to an agreement.
Right.
And if either party disagrees, it doesn't matter what the reason is, for any reason at all, then no exchange should take place. So if Jack Phillips, someone goes to Jack Phillips and says, man, I really want this very specific kind of cake made for this specific purpose, Jack Phillips could say, yeah, I don't want to do that. I decline. Okay, then nobody should be forcing Jack Phillips to make that cake. If someone says, I'm going to offer you some compensation if you'll come help me, and one of the requirements, if you're going to help me, I would like you to be vaccinated. Someone says, no, I don't agree. I don't want to get vaccinated. Okay, then no employment, no agreement should actually happen then. It's really as simple as that. But boy, do people have a hard time getting their minds around once you introduce that concept of business and they say, well, wait a minute, that property is in the form of a business and that business owner can't just fire somebody. Yeah. He actually, if he's a free human being, he should be free to end the agreement at any time. Again, so long as there's no long-term contract.
Right.
And that's another point. You actually like to make this point. If someone really wants long-term job security through pandemics and everything else, then negotiate for a contract.
Right.
Don't just go paycheck to paycheck. Make yourself valuable enough where someone wants to sign a year or 5-year or 10-year contract.
And here's the beauty of that. You negotiate it, you have a contract, and the employer comes to you and says, I want you to get vaccinated. You have two choices, three. You either say, okay, that's not in our contract. I don't want to get vaccinated, so you're either going to have to buy me out of the contract. I'm going to sue you for violating the contract. But that's not going to happen. You could say, that's not in our contract. I want you to compensate me. Right?
What's it worth?
The legal world, they call that consideration, right? I want consideration for the addendum to the contract that says you're going to get vaccinated. Okay, fine. Pay me for it.
Right.
Make it worth it for me to do that. And I can decide, am I willing to do that for the compensation? And that's really it. Or
it brings up, that basic concept of value, right? If the business owner, that one of the people involved in a contract for work in exchange for some sort of compensation, if the business owner says, I really want you to get vaccinated, the question is, well, how much do you value it? How much is that worth to you?
Right.
Let's put a number on it, and let's see if we can come to some kind of mutual agreement. And if they can't reach that agreement, you're right. If you have a contract in place, then there's grounds to be made whole. And if you don't have a contract in place, then that job really is just a temporary agreement. And the moment either party changes their mind, it should be over. It should come to an end.
So to have those relationships and to have sort of these, whether it's a customer business relationship, whether it's an employee and an owner relationship, whatever it is, an employer-employee relationship, kind of all hinges on trust, right? Yeah. It kind of all hinges on, I have to trust that you're going to respect my property and I'm going to respect your property. And we trust each other to understand that this isn't about me making rules for you, and this isn't about me violating your equal individual natural rights. It's we trust each other, and we've entered into this agreement based on mutual trust. And if we don't, get rid of it.
And it helps make that solidify that trust in all those kind of agreements and exchanges that take place within a free society. What really solidifies and strengthens that trust is truth. When both parties are just honest with each other and truthful with each other, it makes it a whole lot easier for people to make their decision, to choose whether or not they're going to, enter into some kind of an agreement, whether they're purchasing something, selling something, thinking about employment, thinking about hiring, whatever it is. If they're just truthful with each other, that sure does bolster that trust that we can extend to one another.
And that has to start right at the beginning, right? That idea of truth. This is the contract.
Yeah.
It's written as I intend it. I have no interest in changing the terms halfway through. I have no interest in violating it or anything else.
Yeah.
This is what it is. We have an agreement. And we hear a lot about sort of the change in attitude in American business over the last, say, 100 years. There were a lot of people who used to just do business on a handshake, right?
Yep.
We're going to talk. I trust you. You're being truthful. I'm being truthful. Let's do business on a handshake and let's move forward. And then we got into this area of progressives telling Americans, don't trust each other. You guys can't trust each other. And oh, by the way, you guys could really take advantage of each other through tort suits, right?
Right.
And you and I talk about this all the time. You can sue anybody for anything, right? Yep. We're not saying that if your employer goes and tells you you have to be vaccinated to keep your job, you're welcome to go file a lawsuit. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean you're going to win.
Right.
Our legal system is full of lawsuits that are frivolous, that have no bearing, that get thrown out of court within a matter of hours.
Yep.
But you can sue anybody for anything, and that's kind of become the foundation of the progressive antitrust model.
I'll add this. I want to come back to these concepts of trust and truth, but I'll add to this, for all those people out there inclined to sue because a business owner says, I have this job to offer and part of the requirements, I'd like people to be vaccinated. The people who want to sue that guy, rather than suing, think instead about, go open your own business. Go start your own business. Take on that risk to go launch your own business. And as you and I both know, it's a highly risky proposition to start your own business and run it the way you want to. And if you think that nobody should be requiring vaccines, then in your business, don't require vaccines. Run it. And for that matter, if you're not satisfied with the wages that are often offered to employees or management or CEO, if you think CEOs get paid way too much and startup employees get paid way too little, then go start your own business and pay your CEO very little and pay your starting employees great big salaries. Right. Run it the way that you want to run it.
Noting that they're probably their own CEO. And at that point, when they're sitting up at 3 a.m. worrying about all the concerns that are going on with the business, they're really going to sit there and rethink, I should be making a whole lot more for this stress.
Right. To deal with the ulcer eating through my stomach right now, I should be paid more.
I was actually watching a little video on Instagram this morning of Dave Portnoy, who I love. I think Dave Portnoy is great. For those who don't know, Dave Portnoy is the founder and I think currently CEO, although he just sold it, of Barstool Sports.
Right.
But Barstool Sports, he has sold Barstool Sports 3 times. So he sold it. The company who bought it ran it into the ground. Poor management, didn't offer as good a service. Customers chose not to stick with them. He goes and buys it back for pennies on the dollar, rebuilt it up, sold it again. The new company again does the same thing. Just nobody could figure out that they couldn't run it the way he did. Right? It's not so easy to be the CEO of a company like that. Well, he just sold again to Penn Gaming, and they're getting into the sports gambling world, and they wanted his user base. But this time they kept him on as CEO of the Barstool brand. So I think that's the current situation. But for the first time I've ever heard him talk about, he did a little personal interview this morning where he talked about how hard it was to get the company up and running. And he talked about the late nights, and he talked about the stress, and he talked about he promised somebody $70,000 to do a podcast, and how is he going to pay that, and where's the money going to come from, and is he going to get enough viewers on it? All of those things.
Another thing that happens and all of our members and listeners who are business owners will appreciate this. Part of running a business is neither the highs nor the lows last long. So something really wonderful happens, and you think, man, we hit it out of the park, right? This is great. Well, just hold on a few hours or a few minutes, because something terrible is about to happen, right? It's like this roller coaster, up and down and up and down.
It's like the weather in Colorado.
That's
right. If you don't like it, wait 5 minutes.
Just wait, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're always, right? No victory is final. No defeat is ultimate. It's back and forth, trying to deal with problems and enjoy these temporary successes. But the bottom line is, if you try to market really anything, that's not true. You're going to run in bad things are going to happen. You're going to run into problems, either in the short term or the midterm or the long term.
Right.
I think there's an important, we see this in the business world, but there are very important parallels in the political world. If you go out and market a lie, and I consider all forms of progressivism, whether you call it communism or fascism or socialism, all these forms of progressive central planning and collectivism, they're all lies, right?
Yep.
People get up and say, look, we're gonna make sure you have free everything, free food and housing and education and healthcare, and everything that you value is gonna be given to you, and you're gonna live in perfect safety. Nothing's going to hurt you or harm you if you just turn over your life to me. Give me total control over your life, and I'll make sure. That's a lie. And the most brutal, murderous tyrannies in history have been built upon that foundation of lies.
Let's put some of that into just current perspective, right? Because I saw this was a meme the other day that I just got such a kick out of. Obama's famous line that everybody, he got nailed to the wall for this one. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, right?
Right.
Somebody posted, Joe Biden's "if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor" is if you get vaccinated, you'll never have to wear a mask again. Right? How? Right. It was a lie. Yeah. He had no idea. Yeah. He had absolutely no sense of are these vaccines going to work? Are there going to be new variants? And now all of a sudden he's out there saying we're within days of him instituting new federal mask mandates. We have states now putting in vaccine passports. California, New York have officially set up. Now you have to get into the state, you have to prove that you've been vaccinated.
I want to head off some of the apologetics, because there are progressives out there who will say, well, the science is always changing, and the scientists are looking at data. Yes, well, that's not what Joe Biden said, right? He did not stand up and say, look, the science is always changing, and so even if you get vaccinated now, we don't know for sure what that will mean in 6 months That's not what he said. What he said was, if you get vaccinated, you're never going to have to wear a mask again, which is itself a kind of lie. It's claiming to know something that he didn't actually know.
Right. And how about one more? This is the one that's really gotten under my skin, because I saw this coming. You saw this coming. And I bet a lot of our listeners, a lot of our members have saw this coming before Joe Biden ever got elected. Yeah. That was the fear of a Joe Biden election. And I think we need to keep reminding people, especially our progressive friends, of this one topic. And that is his claim, his promise. He promised if you make under $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up. Yep. Well, except for your gas prices are going to go up, your food costs are going to go up. You're not even going to be able to get food. I go to a restaurant on a weekly basis, one restaurant in particular, and one of the big common items on the menu is a strawberry chicken salad.
Okay.
They had to take it off the menu because they can't even get strawberries.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even if they wanted to spend $100 on strawberries,
can't get them,
and charge you $150 for the salad,
right?
They can't even get them.
Yep.
We've been seeing this in the car industry. There's no new cars because there's no semiconductors available.
Well, and the lie is he actually the evidence of the lie was right there in his speeches before he was elected, because what he said is, we're only going to tax the rich, those making $400,000 more. Yep. If you make under, we're not going to increase your taxes. And at the same time, he said, we are going to tax businesses. We're going to make businesses pay their fair share. Well, for a business, the taxes are just another operating cost. Yep. They got to pay their water bill, their electrical bill, their rent, their taxes,
their salaries,
all those things
to hire employees.
All those things. They got to pay for inventory. They got to pay for marketing. When the prices of any of those things go up, how does a business deal with that? They turn around and raise their prices to customers. And so when Biden is saying we're not going to raise your taxes, yeah, he absolutely is raising your taxes. He's just doing it covertly, right, in disguise by taxing businesses more, and that's how he's raising our taxes. Everything we buy, everything we do, we're paying more in taxes.
So is it fair to say Joe Biden was not being truthful?
Yeah, very much. Not being transparent, not being truthful. And I want people to think about what this means, whether you're running a business, whether you're running a political campaign, whether you're working towards cultural transformation. I mean, I would argue probably the thing we need the most in America is a cultural transformation toward truth, moving toward truth. We're not going to get to that place where we trust each other. And of course, we're talking about these terms. These are two key precepts within the Vino Veritas Society, truth and trust. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to get to the place where we trust each other unless we're confident that people are being truthful. And it's a great challenge because a lot of people have figured out they can get elected to high offices or they can become fabulously wealthy. They can build by marketing lies. There's a lucrative business out there, marketing lies, and this is one of the things we stand for at the Vino Veritas Society. Not only do we talk about truth, we're truthful to the whole world, right? We say, here's what we are, here's what we do, here's what we have to offer, and we're completely honest and transparent about that.
And we're trying to teach you truth.
Right.
We're trying to teach you what is the truth and that there is a truth, not your truth and my truth, but there is a truth. And you can't have those successful relationships in any sort, business, personal, anything else. You can't have those trusted relationships if you don't know that there is a truth that we can both understand and recognize. And it's interesting, right? You said earlier, lies will eventually end up being found out, right? Mm-hmm. With some cases, I mean, people are realizing the lies of the progressive movement, but it took 150 years.
Yep.
Some people still haven't figured out the lies of the progressive movement. And so, you know.
They're called progressives.
I know. We're still trying to push that along, but that's exactly what we're trying to do. Some take less time, right? Mm-hmm. Obama, realizing you're going to lose your doctor, realizing your health care is not going to be as good, even though you have greater access to health insurance. Yep. Biden saying if you get a vaccine, you won't have to wear a mask. It took less than 6 months.
Yep.
And all of that, it reminds me, I was having a conversation with one of our members, I don't know, just a day or two ago. And he just watched one of the documentaries on the Fire Festival.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember this?
I do. FYRE.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So for those who don't know what the Fire Festival is, let's give a little background. It was a guy who had always kind of been a con artist. Mm-hmm. He had always run little businesses that he started with this like premium black credit card program that if you signed up for his credit card, you supposedly got all of these perks. You got access to concerts and other experiences, right? His whole thing was, I'm going to give you these great experiences. And then when you called in to get them,
you probably lost weight and became better looking too, right?
It's like those diet pills they're selling right now,
that's
where
right.
just take one every night and you'll lose 40 pounds. But he would promise these, and then people would call in saying, hey, I want tickets to this show in Vegas, right? And he'd say, sorry, we've given them all out. Right, all of the ones we had have been purchased already. You'll have to get to us sooner next time.
Right,
and people started to figure out eventually they never were there. Like nobody actually ever got them.
Yeah. The
same guy gets a couple people on board and creates this concept of the Fire Festival. And the Fire Festival was they were renting. They basically claimed that they had rented an island in the Caribbean.
Actually, there was a step before it. They said they were going to design an app. A fire app.
Right.
The purpose of it would be to book music and performance talent.
Right.
And so to show off and unveil the app, they were going to put on this big in-person festival, Fire Festival, to showcase the Fire app. All these great musicians and other performers that they booked through this app,
and get access to tickets to go see these and to get into these shows and all of that stuff. So, and it was kind of a takeoff of the black credit card, right? The premium card. So they reserved this island. And they did. They signed contracts. They reserved this island, and they start announcing, we're going to have the biggest bands ever. We're going to have the biggest names ever. You are going to have the experience of a lifetime. And they just started telling people.
And they said it was all high end. You're going to stay in 5-star luxury accommodations. You're going to eat. The island was down in the Bahamas. You're going to eat, tropical feasts and all these sort of things.
They talked about getting there by private charter jet.
Yeah.
Right? Private charter jet can mean a lot of things. Everybody thinks that means a G5, a G6,
right?
Like these gorgeous private planes. A charter jet can be a United flight that they just book every seat.
Right.
Right? So they go through that whole thing, but they're telling all of these things, and then they take it one step further. They went and they convinced quote unquote influencers.
Yeah.
And they sold influencers on, we're going to pay you. And they even got one to invest in them and said, we're going to pay you, and we're going to have you come in and tell everybody that they can trust us.
Yep.
Right? This is what we're putting on. You can trust us. We're going to put on the greatest show. And if you want to be like this influencer, if you want to have their life, which sometimes it's their life, sometimes it's just a made up life, what you see online. If you want to have their life, you've got to be at this show. And they sold thousands and thousands of tickets to this thing. And people got on airplanes and flew down there and flew to this little island.
And the tickets went up. Some of those tickets were like $12,000.
Right.
I mean, these are expensive tickets, all inclusive. And you're right. And they part of the marketing effort, they hired these beautiful people, and they actually went down to the Bahamas and they made a little video ad where you saw these, cute girls in bikinis riding around on jet skis and things saying, come to the Fire Fest. This is where all of us young, beautiful influencers, right? This is where we're going to be.
If you want to be a part of our lifestyle,
that's right.
If you want to live our lifestyle, which who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to live
Don't miss
the
out
movie
on this.
star, Hollywood?
Yep.
Don't miss out on this. And people did. They knew nothing about the venue. They knew nothing about the people. Yep. They saw no pictures. They just saw these graphic drawings of here's what it's going to look like and here's what's going to happen. And they get down there and there's nowhere to stay.
Yeah.
They're basically look like they're in a refugee camp.
Yep.
Just trying to survive.
Oh, it was terrible. The only thing they came up with, they had some, I think it was like United Nations that they actually use in refugee. They had these tents.
Yeah.
And they had mattresses. And the mattresses were stacked up outside and it rained.
Right.
And so the mattresses were all soaking wet. The tents, and there were only there were hundreds of people, maybe thousands, and there were only a few. There weren't enough tents for anybody. There was no running water.
Yep.
There were no toilets. They're sitting there on this tropical, brutal, island, and there's no accommodation at all. I mean, some people actually got sick down there.
The key point, and the reason I bring this up, and the reason I started down this was we talk about truth and we talk about trust, it wasn't so much that it was the organizers were not telling the truth.
Yep.
But the people who bought tickets and the people who made the trip all the way down there, trusted the people online, the Kylie Jenners online, the influencers, to say, hey, I trust you. You're telling me that this is going to be the time of my life. I saw you in that video. Yeah. I saw that island. Wow, that's amazing. I'm going to be there. Yep. And they just went down. And think about the domino effect that can have on people, right? I mean, Kylie Jenner had to repair her image and repair her value because she lost the trust of some of her fans. Right. The guy himself ends up getting sued. I don't know if he went to jail. I don't know what ended up happening to him. I watched the documentary a couple years ago. I don't really remember all the details, but you have this whole thing of just a total violation of truth and a total violation of trust when you get into things like that. And that's when business becomes a problem. It's not a problem of you better have the vaccine if you're going to work for me. You get that choice, right? You also get a choice of whether you're going to go to this or not. And we have to be better about who we trust.
Yeah, I agree. And that truthfulness, right, is at the center of it. There's a wise man I know once remarked that all injustice and all evil begins with a lie. That if you really trace it back, it's either a lie to someone else or a lie to oneself. It begins with untruth, with a lie. And I think that's right. I think every kind of evil imaginable is based on some sort of lie, whether it's individually or culturally or a big, an unjust regime. It all originates in a lie. And that points to the importance of just telling the truth. And this is no small thing. I mean, this is a huge challenge precisely because of that role of influencers. And it's not that influencers are bad. There are always influencers. What we want influencers who tell the truth.
Right.
I'm reminded in a speech in 1858, Abraham Lincoln was talking about why Stephen Douglas was such a big problem. And it's not merely that Douglas had bad ideas. Douglas was going around telling people that slavery was neither right nor wrong. That you could just be neutral on it. That there was no morality about it. Was an amoral thing. It's not merely that Douglas had the wrong ideas. It's that he was so influential. And the way Lincoln put it, he said, there are many men who will believe anything once they hear Judge Douglas believes it. Stephen Douglas believes it, right? Because they trust Stephen Douglas. So if Stephen Douglas says something, thousands or millions of people say, okay, I'll believe that because Stephen Douglas said that. And it's so easy for those influencers to lead people astray. One of the most famous historical examples, and you and I have talked about this, we've brought up the example of Socrates right here on this podcast. Yeah. But in a way, that's what it was all about. Socrates was surrounded by influencers, the priests, the lawmakers, the old city fathers of Athens. They were the influencers.
Right.
And everyone trusted them. And here comes this guy along, Socrates, and he's saying, yeah, but you're saying things that don't make sense, or you're saying things that are untrue. You're telling lies. And how does Athens reward Socrates? They execute him. They preferred the lies over this guy who had nothing, right? Socrates wasn't wealthy. He had very little immediate influence. He was just trying to get to the truth. And so the point of all that is, it's a great challenge. It's a permanent challenge to be an agent for the truth in a human world where lies and deceptions and empty promises sure go a long way. And that's a big part of what we're doing at the Vino Veritas Society.
Right. I mean, it really does boil down to the people who start something on a lie. When you say all evil begins with a lie, those people end up realizing they have to do anything and everything they can to keep perpetuating the lie, or else they're in serious danger. I mean, you look at somebody like Bernie Madoff. right? Bernie Madoff starts down this lie. He openly admitted when he started that whole Ponzi scheme, he didn't ever have intention of it getting to the size it did.
Yeah.
He lost control of it because he had to keep perpetuating the lie, and he ended up hurting a lot more people in the interest of perpetuating a lie.
Well, and by the way, I think when you look at the history of tyrannies, I think many tyrants, some are truly sociopathic, bad people, but I think there are many who they buy into a lie and they actually think they can create some kind of paradise. And they make these promises, right? You're going to have all these. Life's going to be so wonderful. Just give power to me and to my allies. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in a position of power. And they're like, oh man, now everybody's expecting. We promised all this stuff, and that leads them down this path to more and more control and force and central planning, and terrible, disastrous things happen because of the way a lie carries itself out and what that means, in later iterations.
Sure. So when we started the Vino Veritas Society, I mean, that was sort of our goal, right? Yeah. Our entire purpose here was, how do we start to help people to realize the truth? How do we help people?
How do we help them get to the Veritas, right?
Right.
Let's have a little vino, and let's never, ever forget the Veritas.
But there's a reason we have the precepts.
Yes.
And there's a reason truth is the very first precept.
That's right.
You can't understand anything about human nature, about the world, about what makes a free citizen capable of having a good life and a happy life unless you understand the truth.
You just used two important words I was going to use. You can't be good if you don't value truth. You can't be happy. You can't be a happy person. You can indulge. You can satisfy some immediate appetites and passions, but in the long run, you can't really be a happy, whole human being if you don't value the truth, if you don't pursue the truth. And that's everything that we're trying to do. That is the cultural movement that the Vino Veritas Society represents, is a movement towards truth that will result in much greater civic trust.
Right.
A trusting society that doesn't look to have everything regulated and controlled. And this talk, we were talking about that fire festival. And again, I recommend to people, there's, I think, at least 2 documentaries. It's worth watching. It's quite a fascinating phenomenon. It's FYRE. If you just Google fire festival, it'll pop right up. But it reminds me, we're planning a really special kind of event. Our Leather Apron Club is going to meet in Black Hawk, Colorado.
Right.
From September 23rd through the 25th.
Right.
And we're making promises, and the difference is what we're promising is actually true.
Yeah.
We unlike the fire festival, we actually do have beautiful accommodations. We're going to have unmatched not just world-class facilities, world-class experiences
with you and I.
That's right.
I mean,
we'll be there.
We're not promising some random to be determined keynote speaker who's going to show up.
That's right.
This is going to be you and I.
That's right.
Entertaining people for a weekend.
That's right. Yep. And we're gonna sip some vino, and we're gonna talk about a lot about Veritas and the truth. And this is a real thing. We're here promising something that's real, that's true. And this is a great way for people who are listening to our podcasts and they hear us talking about what goes on at some of our chapters, and they would like a chapter close to them. Maybe some people are in different states and they're thinking, we don't have any chapters at all in our state. This is the way to do it. Join the Leather Apron Club. Come with us. Come be with us for those 3 days in September. Black Hawk is just outside of Denver. It's a very short drive. Beautiful accommodations. I mean, we're at a gorgeous resort hotel, the Monarch Hotel, and you're going to walk away from there with the authority, with the power, with the know-how, with all the tools you need to go start chapters. And this is a key design feature of how we're going to spread Vino Veritas Society across the United States.
Well, the goal is we're going to help you understand the fundamental truth of freedom.
That's right.
We're going to help you understand not only how to apply it to your life, but how to share it with other people and how to bring other people and help other people get aware of it. And that's how we're going to make that cultural change
And I think of, I think of people who invested money in that fire festival. I think of the people who bought those tickets and they got nothing for it. Now, there's a price for joining the Leather Apron Club. It's $1,800, and that's a year, and you can renew that if you want to. You don't have to, and that includes that in-person training. But it also means you're then prepared to go start chapters. You get to authorize if there are anybody else in your area who wants to start new chapters. They have to get your blessing. You're going to sign off on it, and most importantly, you become a big deal. It's an elite group, the Leather Apron Club. It's an elite group within the Vino and Veritas Society.
And even to me, more importantly, you get to know other people who want that understanding. You're building allies, you're building allegiances, you're building friendships, trusted relationships with other people, not just us. And you do get to know us, but other people from around the country who are sitting there and saying, you know what? The lack of truth in this country today can't go on anymore. We have to start exposing the lies.
I'm going to make this promise for those who want to come for $1,800, and you get yourself there for $1,800. This will be a life-changing experience. We're going to take a dive that's going to be deep, it's going to be wide, and I think most people are going to walk away in an entirely different and better frame of mind. They're going to see the world in a different way, and I really encourage people who are interested in getting more involved in the Vino and Veritas Society to join the Leather Apron Club. It's not the Fire Festival, it's the Leather Apron Club, and it's a wonderful thing. Dave, how should people, if people are interested, what should they do?
So they need to get in touch with me directly.
Okay.
At the moment, I want to know who's interested in doing this. I want to be able to answer any questions.
So
there's nothing secretive. So
if they call, will you answer the phone?
If they call, I will answer the phone.
Okay.
And we put this out there about a week ago, and I got some calls about other people who wanted to talk ideas. People who wanted, please be respectful of this is calling me directly, and we do a lot.
Don't call Dave at 3 a.m.
Right. But the phone number for those who have pen and paper available, or have their phone out and they can type it in, it's 720-722-8274.
Okay.
They can also email me, david@vinoandveritassociety.com.
And if they go to our website.
And on our website, right on the homepage, or if they click on the commentary page, either one, the very first posting right now
in the commentary section. Describes Leather Apron Club and contact and all the details that they need to know so that they can be with us September 23rd, 24th, 25th in Black Hawk, Colorado.
And that applies for them. It's also a publicly available page. Unlike our podcast, unlike our content, where it's protected,
so
we're only our members.
Others.
So if you have friends, if you're a part of a chapter already, if you're a guardian and you want to tell your friends,
send that link around.
Send the link around.
Or share it on Facebook, share it on social media, share it on Twitter.
Right. We keep hearing from our members. They think what we're doing is important. They're enjoying it. They want more. They want people to expand. They want to meet new people. They're looking for people in other states. We have some people who do business travel. And they said, I wish when I'm in Tennessee or Texas or Florida or California, that I could meet with other people who are part of the Vino Veritas Society.
And this is an important point. I don't want to forget this. These spots are limited because this kind of experience, it's a unique thing. Here again, I'm just thinking of all the ways we're different than the Fire Festival. The Fire Festival, they were going to pack tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people spread out over an island. We're going to be together. And so we're keeping this very small. We are looking at 25 to 30. And they're already starting to go. And so if somebody wants in, first of all, if they just want in the program in any way, they need to contact us now. And also we have an arrangement with the hotel. If they sign up now, they're going to get a special rate on their room that's significally less expensive.
And get a guaranteed room as opposed to Fire Festival where...
that's right. That's right. We don't want someone showing up getting a refugee tent and a rain-soaked mattress and say, have a good night's sleep.
But if you wait to sign up until September, you might be sleeping in a tent outside of the hotel.
It
is the mountains in Colorado. You can do that. We don't necessarily recommend it.
Read off that phone number one more time.
It's 720-722-8274. 8274.
Okay. And also right there on our homepage on the website, vinoandveritassociety.com, go to the commentary or just scroll down. The commentaries at the bottom, and there's an article there where we have, it's all about Leather Apron Club. We call it the Modern Leather Apron Club, and contact information is in there and all the details.
I suppose it's quickly worth just telling people what the Leather Apron Club was, why we chose that name.
Oh yeah, it's a great name. I love that name, the Leather Apron Club.
It is. So for those who aren't aware, Ben Franklin in 1727, and we've talked about this, our motif.
Yep, there he is.
Ben Franklin actually created a group. He called it the Junto, but it also went by the name the Leather Apron Club.
Yeah.
And it was a group of guys who got together, often in the offices of his printing press facility, and would talk about ideas and share papers and share theories and get to understand everything from Aristotle to Adam Smith to John Locke and even some of the things that were starting to come out at that time about what does a free people look like.
And so it's really the kernels of the revolution are being formed. And at the same time, they were drinking a little wine, drinking a little beer, right? It was a social club too. So they were a group of people who actually enjoyed spending time together, and they would break some bread, drink some wine, and talk about important things, serious things. It made them better. And this is really what ends up, the culmination of those kinds of friendships and that kind of trust becomes on full display in 1775 and 76 as the American Revolution opens wide up.
Right. So, we're going to keep expanding. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. We've got some more new exciting things coming up, and we're looking forward to more and more people becoming guardians.
So if you are looking to launch a new chapter somewhere near you, please come join us for the Leather Apron Club. It's going to be a weekend experience unlike you've ever had before.
And that goes for members as well. If you're a current member and you want a better handle on these things, if you want to make sure your chapter can be everything it can be, if you want to improve your own understanding of this stuff and be able to help the members of your chapter, it's the same opportunity with this.
Very cool. Until then, we're going to keep guarding the American idea.
Yep. Nos somos custodes.
Yep. Till next time.